See a raise, I say, holding out my scan card. The worker records the number on the side of the foilware dinner with her datapod and gives the meal to me. The datapod beeps again as Alexander takes his food and stands beside me. Do you see Em anywhere? Or Piper? Or Kai? He asks. Blankets, patchwork, in the play yard on the side of the first school. It's a real picnic, food eaten outdoors on the grass. The workers rush around the yard trying to get the right meals to the right hands. It is a bit of a hassle, and I can see why they don't do this very often. It's much easier to have the food sent to the people's homes, schools, and workplaces. I don't think Piper and Kai signed up this time, I say, because of work. Someone waves at us from the blanket in the middle of the yard. It's Em, I tell Alexander, pointing, and together we wave our way through the blankets on the grass and say hello to our classmates and friends. Everyone is in a good mood, giddy with the novelty of the whole activity. Looking down, trying not to step on anyone's blanket or anyone's food, I walk right into Alexander, who has stopped. He turns and grins at me over his shoulder. You almost made me drop my dinner, he says, and I tease him back, giving him a little shove. He flops down on the blanket next to Em, and I lean over and look at her foilware container. What did they send us? Meat and vegetable casserole, Em says, making a face. Remember the ice cream, I say? I almost finished eating when someone called out Alexander from across the grass. I'll be right back, he tells us, before he stands up and makes his way through the crowd. I can track his progress through the mass of people. They turn and watch him pass. Call out his name. Em leans over and says, I think something's wrong with me. I took the green tablet this morning already. I meant to save it for later this week, you know. I almost asked Em what she meant, then I feel like a terrible friend because how could I forget? Her match banquet. I meant to save the tablet for that night because she's getting nervous. Oh, Em, I say, putting my arm around her, hugging her. She and I have been drifting apart lately. And not by choice. This happens as you get closer to your work assignment and vocations. But I miss her, the nights like this, especially summery nights, when I remember how it was when we were younger and had more time. When Em and I used to spend so many of our free rec hours together. When we had more of them then. It'll be wonderful tonight, I tell her. I promise, everything's so beautiful. It's exactly like they tell us it will be. Really? Em asks. Of course. Which dress did you pick? They redesign the dresses every 3 years, so Em has the same pool choice from them that I did. One of the yellow ones, number 14. Do you remember it? So much happened since I stood in the matching office to pick out my dress. I don't think so, I say, searching my mind. Em's voice becomes animated as she describes the dress. It's a very light yellow. It's one with the butterfly sleeves. I remember now. Oh, Em, I love that dress. You'll be beautiful. I will too. She will too. The yellow is perfect color for Em. It will look lovingly against her creamy skin and her black hair and the dark eyes. It will make her look like sunshine in the spring kind. I'm so nervous. I know. It's hard not to be. Everything's different now that you've been matched with Alexander, Em tells me. I've been, wondering. But my match with Alexander doesn't make it any more likely. I know. It's all known that. But now I can't help but wonder. Em looks at the foilware container and her nearly untouched dinner. A chime sounds from the loudspeaker, and we all automatically begin to gather our things. Time to work. Em sighs and stands up. Trace the worry still lined her face, and I remember how it felt when I waited for my match. I say impulsively, I have a compact you can borrow if you want for your banquet. It's golden and it'll look perfect with your dress. I could bring it over tomorrow morning. Her eyes widened. You have an artifact? And you will lend it to me? Of course. You're one of my best friends. Red blossom new rose plants sit in the back plastic tubs, waiting for us to plant them in the ground in front of the first school. First school always looks so cheerful. I can picture the inside of the school with its bright yellow walls, green tile floor, and blue classroom doors. It's easy to feel safe here. I always did when I was young. I feel safe here now, I tell myself. There's no home left. Papa's problems all over. I'm safe here and everywhere else. Except perhaps on the little hill where, in spite of my decision to stay safe, I often find myself glancing over at Kai, wondering, wishing we could talk again, but not daring to take a risk of saying anything to him besides the common things, the things we always say. I look over my shoulder for Kai, but I still don't see him. What kind of flowers are these? Xander asks as we dig the soil in thick and black. It comes apart in clumps as we lift it. New roses, I tell Xander. You probably have some growing in your own yard. We all have them in ours. We don't tell him that they're not my mother's favorite. She thinks the ones that we have in the city, in all the gardens and public spaces, are too hybridized, too far from their original selves. The older rose took a lot of care to grow. Each blossom was a triumph. But these are hardly showy breed of dappily. We don't have new roses in the farmland, my mother says. We have other flowers, wildflowers. When I was little, she used to tell me stories about those different flowers that grew wild in the farmlands, the stories that didn't have plot. They weren't even really stories as much as they were descriptions, but they were beautiful and they lured me to sleep. Queen Anne's lace, my mother would say in a slow, soft voice. Wild carrots, you can eat the roots when it's young enough. Wildflowers, the flowers are white and lacy, lovely, like stars. Who's Queen Anne? I asked drowsily. I can't remember. I think she's in the 100 history lesson somewhere, but shh, it's not important. What's important is that you see the lace in front of you. Too many little flowers to count, but try anyways. Xander hands me a new rose plant and I pull it from its small plastic tub and put it in the ground. The strong, stringy roots have grown in circles around the inside of the pot. For lack of anywhere else to go, it spreads them out and puts new rose plants in the ground. Looking at the soil makes me think of the dirt in my shoes collect while I hike. Thinking of hiking makes me think of Kai again. I wonder where he is. As Xander and I plant the flowers and talk, I picture Kai working while the rest of us play, or listening to the music piped into the almost empty auditorium. I imagine him walking through the crowds at the recreation building and taking his turn playing the games that he will likely lose. I see him sitting in the theater watching the showing, tears in his eyes. No, I banished the image from my mind. I won't do this anymore. The choice is made. I've never had a choice to begin with. Xander knows I'm not listening to him as closely as I should. He glanced to make sure no one could hear us, and he said softly, Cassia, are you still worried about your father? My father, I don't know, I say. The truth is, I don't know how I feel about him right now. Already the anger has given way, almost against my own will, to more understanding, more empathy. If grandfather had looked at me with the fiery eyes and asked me to do him one last favor, I wouldn't have been able to tell him no. The evening slides in slowly darkening the sky by degrees. There's a trace of light left when the chimes ring again, and we stand up to survey our work. A small breeze drifts across to the ground, and the flowers bed ripe red in the dusk. I wish we could do this every Saturday, I say. I feel like we had created something beautiful. My hands are stained red from some of the crashed petals, and they smell of earth and new rose. A sharp flower smell that I like, in spite of my mother's comments about the old rose perfume being more subtle, more delicate. What's wrong with being durable? What's wrong with something being someone that lasts? Standing there looking at my work, however, I realize that all my family has done is short, never create. My father stores old artifacts, like my grandfather did. My great-grandmother stored poems. My farmland or grandparents plant seeds, tend crops, but everything they grow has been assigned by the officials, just like the things my mother grows in the atrium. Just like we did here. So I didn't create anything after all. All I did was what I was told and followed the rules, and something beautiful happened, exactly as the officials had promised. There's the ice cream, Alexander says. The workers wheel the freezer cart along the sidewalk near the flower beds. Alexander grabs me by one hand and Em by the other and pulls us to the nearest line. We take the workers much less time to hand out our foils, cups of ice cream than it took to pass out our dinners, because ice cream is all the same. Our meals have our specialized vitamins and enrichments that have to be given to the right person. Ice cream is nothing but food. Some call out to Em, and she goes over and sits by them. Alexander and I find a place a little apart from everyone else, where we lean on our backs against the sturdy cement block walls of the school and stretch out our legs. Alexander's are long, and his shoes are worn. He must be due for some new ones soon.